Well, hello and good evening, everybody. Welcome back to Slow Motion Broadcasting, and welcome back to the Ray Esports Club Racing League. This is round number 4 for group number 1, coming to you tonight from Daytona. My name is Ron Maunz. Alongside me in the commentary booth is Charles Bushell, and in the virtual production hauler we have Joshua Wilkie. First up, as always, we have the Mazdas, where we're in for a good one here today. The real-life MX-5 Cup races at Daytona are just a thriller to watch. So here in the sim, we're expecting it to be about the same. Charles, we are no stranger to covering Mazda races together, so with that being said, I hope you grab some popcorn because this is going to be a real entertaining way to kick off the evening.
Yeah, this is, if you're going to start a season the way IMSA starts the season, I mean, the Mazdas at Daytona are just a thrill ride. So much action, so tightly packed. The cars are just, they draft off each other. I watched the race last year, the live race, and we had a guy in 9th place coming out of the infield and finished 2nd. So it's a barn burner. And then now, with this series, who knew you could actually multi-class race with Mazdas? So, the fact that we've got the MX-5 Cup cars and the spec Miatas in the same field, this looks like it's going to be a really fantastic race. I'm really happy to be part of this.
Yeah, really happy to have you back on these Ray Esports broadcasts, Charles. We brought you back with the third round for group number 3 1 week ago, that being the Formula V and Spec Racing Ford action at Summit Point 1 week ago, and that was a pretty good race and a pretty damn good way to bring you back. But here, for round number 4 for group number 1, we've got Mazda Mania, as I like to refer to it as, 30 minutes of Mazda multi-class racing coming up for you tonight, and then later on we've got 40 minutes of TCR racing action as well. The touring cars always put on some really good races. So we got 2 races looking forward to tonight, and in this race, the first one of the evening, we've got 2 classes to talk about as well. In the MX-5 Cup class, it's been a story of dominance for Michelle Squire. She's won every single MX-5 Cup race thus far, one at her hometown track of Roadland to kick the season off all the way back on October 30th to bring in this new adventure in the Ray Esports world. Bathurst, about a month later, was another win for Michelle Squire, and VIR, which strangely enough, it feels like it's been a very long time since we did one of these group number 1 broadcasts, not because it has been at the break for the holidays. The last time we saw this series was on December 18th. The last time we saw the Mazdas out on the racetrack here from the Ray Esports Club Racing League, I was still a teenager, so that really puts it into perspective there. But Michelle Squire also won at VIR. And the Spec Miatas, though, it's been pretty much up in the air. You've had Seth Spolman win the opening race. Matt Thompson won the race after that, followed by Skip Rock Jr. taking the checkered flag at VIR. And in the TCR category, which I'll talk about later on, Jake Sned and Ian Anderson have been the dominant ones in that subsection of this group. But in this qualifying session right now, coming up to the halfway mark in about 30 seconds time, and looking to get some first qualifying times on the board. Charles, I know you're a newcomer to this series, so I'll give you the information. Very hard to bet against someone like Michelle Squire.
Yeah, absolutely. Sounds like she has done a fantastic job the first part of the season. And it sounds like that Michelle may be the odds-on favorite to win tonight. But with the track like Daytona, kind of all bets are off. Strange things tend to happen here. I've just been kind of watching as they were going through their qualifying laps. There's really not that much difference in the pace between the 2 classes. So this might mix things up quite a bit, especially on a big draft-happy track like this.
And looking at it at the moment, I think they're spread out a little bit because we've got the MX-5 Cup cars, which you can see marked out with the not sure the best way I can describe it, considering that my area of the country, that being Philadelphia, has been subject to snow for the past couple of days. I'll say in the yellow snow orange-ish yellow color. We'll say mac and cheese yellow. That's a bit more appetizing. You can see that small little ticker on the left-hand side with the wonderful graphics that we have here at SMB. That indicates the Mazda MX-5 Cup cars. The blue, on the other hand, that will let you know which ones are in the old Spec Miatas. The Spec Miatas are as I said, they're a little bit older. You can just kind of tell based off the way they look. They look like an early 2010s to late 2000s Mazda Miata. So a little bit of a different looking car, still a pretty fast one, and some different characteristics. This one has a stick shift, I believe, up until this exact season of iRacing, either this one or the one before. It still had the old tire model, so some differences to be had between the two cars. But in terms of pace, they're actually proving to be pretty all right. I gotta say, it looks like the spec Miatas may be doing a little bit better in the straight line speed, which around a track like this is oh so vital.
Yeah, absolutely. The straight line speed's gonna be vital for those spec Miatas, because I think we've talked about this in our history of covering this series, that these spec Miatas are a little bit different as far as the drive, with these cars, where you have to do a little bit more work to get the car shifted. Money shifts seem to be an issue. We've seen a few blown engines over the course of our time, especially down in the Le Mans chicane, i.e. the bus stop. It's, like I said, it's going to be very interesting. It's kind of, these cars are very similar, and I'm sure there are Mazda MX-5 gearheads out there who will tell us that, yeah, this is the spec Miata is based on the NB, and then the MX-5s are based on the ND series. I don't know what any of that means, but it sounds good. But we're just going to enjoy the racing and see who comes out on top tonight. It's, like I said, it's going to be a fantastic race to watch, and guaranteed these classes are going to intermix during the course of this race.
Yeah, some of that interclass mingling has decided a lot of races thus far this season. The three that we've had thus far, we have seen that interclass mingling from time to time, which has spawned some very hectic moments, to be sure. But in this qualifying session right now, it is Nicholas Rice Pudo, your current provisional pole sitter, saying a 2-minute 10.290. That's a pretty good lap time. He finds himself about 0.4 of a second in front of Kyle Robertson, rounding out your front row as it stands currently. Got the two heavy hitters on the Right Esports Club Racing League in the form of Miles Crabbe and Michelle Squirek, qualified in third and fourth. Casey Knight, who we haven't seen in a little bit, for the simple sake that she's usually a driver in group number 1 and group number 2. Haven't really seen her make an appearance thus far this season in group 3, but she's currently qualified in 5th at the moment. TJ Yankee, who are falling right now, the number 21 car, qualified in P6. I gotta say, in the Spec Miata, so it's currently the 12th place qualifier, and a nice camera angle that we've got right now. Ryan Campbell in the number 12 car is your current provisional pole sitter. I will do a little bit of fact checking before I open my mouth anymore, as we are looking at the high banks of this wonderful racetrack, one of the most historic in the world of sports car racing, historic in the world of club racing as well. And I want to make sure, yes, we do have the gyro cam for that. I want to make sure that my perspective wasn't warped there.
Yeah. That's a good way to show you what 31 degrees of banking looks like on those NASCAR corners.
And that it absolutely does. That is a brilliant looking camera. And I'm trying to think now whether our wonderful producer, Mr. Joshua Wilkie, did that, or if I kind of chipped into to help those cameras. I think they may have been mine, according to Josh, so I will take at least part of the credit. I will credit him, though, for actually using them, so I guess I did an okay job with those. So, funnily enough, if the commentary stuff doesn't work for me, I guess I can make a pretty okay living in like a 1950s peasant's terms, in terms of making iRacing cameras. But oh boy, I think this qualifying session now being brought to a conclusion, so we have a little bit of a lull time between now and the start of this race. I think before we get things up and rolling from the first race of this evening for round number 4 for group number 1 of the Right Esports Club Racing League, it should be noted that tonight's broadcast of the Right Esports Club Racing League on Slow Motion Broadcasting is brought to you by Sim Motion. Sim Motion is a store by sim racers for sim racers, carrying everything from bun boxes to steering wheels and the best brands for the sim racing world, including Sim Magic, Moza, Husingveld, and many, many more. With decades of experience in the industry, Sim Motion is a great choice for sim racers in both North America and Europe looking to upgrade their simulators. If you'd like to check out what Sim Motion has to offer, go to us.sim-motion.com. us.sim-motion.com. That's us.sim-motion.com. SimMotion is not only the sponsor of the official Formula 1600 series here on iRacing, but is a proud partner of the Ray Esports Club Racing League. And feel free to use discount code RAY5 at checkout to receive some very sweet discounts. But speaking of very sweet, we got some sweet racing action coming up. Hopefully, you haven't spoiled your dinner. It's going to be Nicholas Pudo going to be starting this race from the pole in the number 7 car. He improved on his time to go to a 209.8. He'll be starting this race from the pole position. Michelle Squire going to join Pudo on that front row. Kyle Robertson will be starting this race in third next to Miles Crab in fourth. Casey Knight in the 210 car, the teammate to Michelle Squire, will be starting this race in the fifth starting spot. TJ Yankee, the Michigander, in the number 21 car, will run at your third row. Joshua Justice, a Ray Esports and Weekend Warrior staple, will find himself in seventh. Trent Kramer in eighth in the 444. Christian Pudo, the younger brother to Nicholas Pudo, will be starting in ninth. Randy Marino will run at your top 10. Antonio Risa, Weekend Warrior staple, will find himself in 11th. Next to Ryan Campbell, the pole man in the Spec Miata category. And running at your field, we're going to find Seth Spolman in the number 42 car in 13th. Matt Thompson in 14th. Corey Heffron in P15, Chuck Lopano in P16, Aaron Gray in 17th, Andrew Love in 18th, John A. Casey in the Frito Sport car in 19th, Wayne Baltimore in 20th, Mike Key in 21st, Jason Ryder in 22nd, Tom Wendt in 23rd, Gianni Maioro starting this race in 24th, and rounding out your 24 starters that we have for the opening race of this evening. 30 minutes in length and a lot of stuff to look forward to. Won't have to think about a pit stop, but we'll have to think about that pit wall on exit. Seen plenty of drivers, regardless of what kind of cars are running around this racetrack, just pancake that barrier in the past. So who knows? May have a case of deja vu like that. Certainly lap one going to be tricky for these racers. You can win the race at the start, but you sure can lose it, and these drivers looking not to get hit by that bullet at the very start of this race. That pace car is going to turn to come down pit lane. The green flag is out. The drivers are on their way. It's a pretty even heel start with both of our front row sitters. Let's see who's going to have to jump into the braking zone of turn number one. Some full wide action already a little bit further behind. Hopefully they make it through clean, but it's Michelle Squire and Nicholas Pudo side by side at the front. Squire trying to hold her own around the outside through the first corner. Now through the quick left-right flick of that chicane, about to head their way into the International Horseshoe. Still side by side. That's a car going off the track a little bit farther in the back. That I think may have been Matt Thompson, the 33. But as this field heads their way through the International Horseshoe for the first time, it's Squire jumping out to the lead overall and in the Maunz MX-5 Cup class. That's Ryan Campbell holding on to it in Spec Miata. So you see them three wide action heading off into the kink.
Yeah, absolutely. Great start by most everybody. Oh, we'll see Car Lobano off. Oh, nope, just a little blink. He's back on the track. It was pretty straightforward. Everybody got through the first couple of corners clean. Yeah, turn one's always tricky. This corner, if on the cold tires, you be very careful back on the throttle. You end up turning the car sideways, and then all bad things could happen after that. So looks like so far so good for everybody. So now it looks like everybody's get up to speed, and we're going to settle in for about 30 minutes of racing.
Settling in for a 30-minute long MX-5 race, which is probably going to go by in the blink of an eye. These racers are going to make sure that there's no dull moment from the drop of the green flag all the way to the falling of the checkered. Now we're heading our way off into the Le Mans chicane for the first time. You can see this game of MX-5 leapfrog is already starting up. Nicholas Pudo in the number 7 car getting the move done, as that was definitely an off-track moment for Josh Justice a little bit farther in the back. I think there was some more drama involving Casey Knight. She's dropping her way down the running order now outside the top 20, so I think there's a lot of drama heading off there. There's Casey Knight in the 210, looking to see if there's any damage on that race car. Was stopped on corner exit. Joshua Justice did lose out on some time. I saw him overcooked about a country mile heading off into the corner, so there's definitely some wild off-track encounter for the driver of the number 99 car. But the 210 of Knight having a dreadful start, dropping down to 24th. So some drivers making it through the opening lap clean, others not so fortunate.
Yep, here's the replay for Knight coming down into the bus stop. Pretty good entry. Oh, just a little checkup right there, and I think she maybe just a little too hard on the brakes. Got a little offline and walked through the that looks like everybody got through clean. You got to be very careful. But once you stopped, you might as well just stay there, let everybody clear, and then you can get moving again. Nice job, everybody, to avoid the sideways part in the bus stop.
think I'm going to reiterate a word from my childhood. Yikes. That's the only way I can describe that, because that was, oh boy, that could have ended an absolute disaster. And I saw some drivers taking the rally line coming out of the Le Mans chicane, and even though the grass physics have been reworked, you still don't want to fling a whole bunch of dirt and mud onto this racetrack. Otherwise, come time for the end of it, that corner got to look more like a rally special stage than anything else. Back up at the front, though, side-by-side racing with Squirek and Rice Pudo going on to the high banks of 1 and 2. These two giving us a really hard fight, but Miles grabbing third, certainly within striking distance.
Yeah, absolutely. And you see the bump drafting going on. That's going to be a staple of this race. These two cars running nose to tail like this will go faster than the car on the outside by itself. As you can see, these two cars have moved up to the front of the field. So now it's just going to go. Oh, it's getting behind.
Squirek has been spun on the back straightaway. What in the world has happened to the driver of the number 95 car? The formidable driver for Formidable Racing Development. Not going to be formidable in this race, though. She's dropped outside the top 15. What has gone down with her should be noted as we're looking at some of the runners in the Spec Miata category, that Ryan Campbell has lost out big time in that class. He's dropped down to 15th behind this man, Chuck Labano, in the number 2 car. Matt Thompson now grabbing the lead in that class, looking for a second win on this season. But Michelle Squirek getting spun on the back straightaway. I'm not sure if that was just bump drafting gone cataclysmically wrong, or whether there was some chicanery involving some side-by-side racing gone horribly wrong. Either way, not the line you want to take at all, heading down the super stretch here at Daytona International Speedway. Michelle Squirek on the back foot big time, so probably not going to continue on that streak and make it 4 for 4. This is a really good opportunity for Miles Crab to grab a win this season, as we see the side-by-side racing up at the north end of the field.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that I think Josh is working on a replay. Without looking at it, my guess is maybe she was trying to duck down to get behind those two cars, or she had a run and was able to try to move down to get up, and maybe just miscommunication with some other traffic around. As we were going to catch it right here. Yep, she's on the high line, comes down to the bottom. We got a fourth car who's got the run. It's going to move down to the inside, and I just don't think she saw the car coming down the inside. Was going to make that move herself. Had a good run coming down through NASCAR 3, and just basically not catching the car on the inside and making contact.
Things going from bad to worse with the drivers at the north end of the field. We saw that moment a couple of moments ago in the replay of what happened to Michelle Squirek. It was actually her and this man, Kyle Robertson, in the 215 that were the cars making contact 1 lap ago. We just saw Nicholas Rice-Pudo running incredibly wide coming out of turn 7, dropping his way down to 3rd. But that was just 2 cars fighting for the same piece of real estate in a section of the racetrack where you just don't want to have any screwy behavior going on. But in all of that drama, it's been a pretty hectic start to this race, as we're going to take a look to see all of that drama from Robertson's perspective in the 215.
Yeah, you can see it right here. You can see him starting to gain some track position, moving up a little bit. Squirek moves down, makes that 4 deep on that line. You used to see the good run he got off of the corner. And yeah, I don't think she saw him. I think that's just what it was he moved down because he had a great run. And I just don't think she moved down, not necessarily to block, but just to move down because she had a run herself. And, that's going to happen. Luckily, you get a good spin. You get a chance to kind of recuperate a little bit. She's already starting to kind of work her way back up. And then she's got a teammate in Knight who is working her way up as well. So those 2 cars get together, you might see some serious bump drafting up through the field.
I certainly won't rule that out at all. I think a driver just got bumped, that being Antonio Reese. He's now dropped down to 24th and is out of it here, so I'll take a look to see whether that was some sort of disconnect. I think he has disconnected from the session, but I'm not sure if it was an internet issue or what, but either way, Antonio Reese dropping out of it. Gotta say, though, haven't mentioned this driver, Gianni Maioro, the Floridian, currently running 3rd in the number 8 car. Where the hell has he come from? He's up 21 spots since a drop of the green flag. Started last, now running in the final podium spot. This has been a brilliant drive from Mauro, and we'll get the chance to take a look at a replay to see another move from Mauro in that number 8 car, and down the inside into the International Horseshoe, and rather textbook stuff to get past Robertson.
Yeah, absolutely. That was a textbook move down into the inside in the horseshoe. Yeah, started on the back of the field and just got a good start. Was able to work his way up through the spec class, and is now challenging for the lead.
And as we take a look at a battle a little bit farther in the back, Michelle Squirick not involved in this. However, we've got 3 cars involved in it still. Yankee, Marino, and Kramer battling as hard as they can, heading down the back straightaway. Look at that, Marino getting hung out to dry. Actually, no, that was TJ Yankee, my apologies, getting hung out to dry. Marino getting the move done in that number 19 car. Trent Kramer slipping his way up into 7th via the meat of that sandwich as it stands at the present moment. And look at how much a good, clean run heading through the bus stop can benefit your race. There were 3 wide heading down that back straightaway a couple of moments ago, and just because Marino had a good run heading through that Le Mans chicane, that's allowed him to pull a pretty big cushion to the front of Kramer's car. I'll circle back to that point in a couple of moments as we see 2x2, a 4-pack of MX5 Cup cars reading their way now down into turn number 1. Let's see who's going to win at this time. Mauro sweeping around the outside, going to get the move done on Miles Krabs' race. Puda and Robertson side by side on corner exit. They may try and battle with Miles Crab here in a couple of moments time as well. Miles Crab in that 131 car, very fast driver in this series. I mean, I feel like we can kind of attest to that, Charles, because we've covered many races that he's won, but certainly dealing with the fight of his life with one race. Puda, gotta say another one getting involved, that being his brother Christian. So this turned into a 5-car fight at the front of the field.
Yeah, that was a little bit of contact there between Nicholas and Miles Crab coming through the horseshoe. I think maybe Bryce Pudo got a little bit on the curb on the inside, maybe lost the rear, but was able to gather it back up. Crab gave him plenty of room and able to make that. So we're going to get a replay here of Antonio Reese and Josh Justice. I was going to mention Josh earlier. Had the fastest lap of the race from 10th position, just hanging back out in the draft. Was like a second and a half faster than everybody in front of him. And I can't see the replay, unfortunately, so my replay is bugged out. So, yeah, Josh, so if you have that, you can cover it.
I think we got another angle of this, and you can just see 3 wide action heading off into the corner, not going to cut muster. And oh, that was a big hit for Antonio Reese. Both Reese and Justice hitting that inside pit wall. So I'm not going to say I called it, but I feel like I called it there. I mentioned how that inside pit wall coming out of it is just brutal. That concrete barrier, it's concrete, should be expected. There's absolutely no give into it. You don't hear pillows made out of concrete. It's not Tempur-Pedic here, folks, but that's still a really tough spot to hit. There have been some drivers in the past couple of years in IMSA in real life who've actually broken their backs hitting that wall in a GT car. So that is a really tough bit of racetrack. And if you got it wrong, unless you spear to the outside and do a little bit of lawn mowing and really flip it in the process, you're gonna hit that wall and it's gonna hit like a ton of bricks. So Reese and Justice both getting involved in that. Reese out of the session. Justice had to tow. Actually saw a photo of the perspective of Joshua Justice and all of that. He could not see over his hood. It was so crumpled up. So Justice dropping back down to 22nd. We got battles all up and down this grid.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that we're getting to this point where just about 12 minutes into the race, you'll start seeing these gaps stabilize a little bit as these cars kind of settle for a few minutes, knowing that they're going to have to make some serious moves in the last couple of laps of the race to get the finishing position they want. So we may see a little bit of lull here as they're just kind of riding back and forth. You'll see a pass here and a pass there, but it won't be the 3 wide that we're used to seeing with the MX-5s. Generally, they're just going to kind of take it easy for a bit. We're on board here with Chuck Labano. Getting past, has been passed by Casey Knight. So she's made her way back up into P10. She's cleared the Spec Miata field, and she's just a few positions worse. Yeah, she's right. She's 7 seconds behind her teammate, but they are nose to tail for position in 9th and 10th.
I have to see how that battle is going to shake out between the two, whether it's going to be a battle at all or if they're going to possibly work together. I gotta say, some drivers certainly not working together. Nicholas Rasputo being one of them, as he and Mayura are going to be side by side on corner exit coming out of the Le Mans chicane. Rasputo, I think he may have to either he's serving a slowdown or just the lack of the draft causing him to drop down like a rock. That number 7 car now back in the tow. 5 cars covered by about a half a second, 13 minutes into this 30-minute long race. It's Mayuro leading it for now over Crabb and Robertson, but here comes the duo, the brotherly duo of Nicholas and Christian Rasputo. You can see them working together, bump drafting each other like crazy on that outside line. Heading through the tri-oval right now, they're going to be on the outside line heading into the first corner. Will they be able to form a successful insert movement, for lack of a better term, on the drivers at the front? It looks like they will be able to get the job done on Mayuro. However, Nicholas Rasputo looking to get that move done on Crabb. Miles Crabb, I was going to mention this a couple of moments ago. He's a driver that we have some experience commentating on, Charles, and if any driver is maybe going to be the one taking advantage of the trouble that we saw earlier involving Michelle Squire, who's been dominant thus far this season, it's probably going to be Miles Crabb. Yeah,
he's had some good runs here at Daytona in various cars. Talked to him a couple of times in interviews, and he's a local guy. Actually, he lives out near me, so I don't know him personally, but you know, just from talking to him a couple of times after races where he's had good results, he seems like he does really well, especially at Daytona. He really likes the draft and likes the draft aspect of these cars, not just these cars, but spec racers and formulas as well. So he might be one to kind of keep an eye on, because he seems like usually has pretty good race strategy when it comes to it. Oh, see the 21 car, TJ Yankee kind of losing a little bit there. Felt like he was losing the rear end, had to check up. Made a little contact with the car that was going by. I think that was Trenton Kramer. But Kramer successfully gets around to move up to P7. Yankee will settle back in and see if he can start making up that gap that he's got to Kramer. It's now 2.5 seconds.
Some of the gaps that we've got developing all throughout this field, I think the one big pack that hasn't broken up is obviously the 5 cars that we have at the north end of the field. I will say, though, looks like Kyle Robertson and Christian Rasputo dropping back a tiny bit. I'm curious as to whether or not these front 3 will be able to shake them off, or if the draft is just going to keep all these race cars glued together like a like insert simile here. 4 cars now form a little bit of a conga line as Christian Rasputo dropping back. I've come up with a pure lack of similes at this point. I was going to say glued together like a poorly constructed model car, but that just is further reason why I should probably not get into building model cars. Side-by-side racing going to cool off between Rasputo and Mayuro. Nicholas Rasputo getting the move done to slip his way up into the lead of the race. Miles Crabb currently still running in 3rd, Robertson in 4th, and Christian Rasputo and all that's still only 0.9 of a second off of the front 2, as we have some 3-wide action a little bit farther in the back, heading through the tri-oval. Corey Heffron running in the number 52 car right now. Matt Thompson and Seth Spallman involved in this fight as well. These 3 battling as hard as they can for the win in the spec Miata category, and all of them have a really good shot to do it. You can see the side-by-side racing maybe going to flare up heading off into the Air National Horseshoe. And look at that, Ryan Campbell, who started this race from the spec Miata pole, going to get involved in this fight as well. Should be noted that of these racers that we've got right now at the north end of the field, Seth Spallman and Matt Thompson already have victories thus far this season. Ryan Campbell, though, in that 12 car, has certainly shown some pace. I'd like to Chuck Labano, the Frito Sport number 2, just in the back of shot. He may end up getting involved in this fight as well, so we can have 5 cars battling for the overall win and for the spec Miata win at the same time.
Yeah, it was definitely a 3-car pack and a 2-car pack for a few laps there. Was kind of watching the timing and scoring, but once those cars went side by side down to turn 1, you see just how much ground the cars behind could gain, as they had to just kind of tiptoe their way through the corners there side by side, make sure they didn't make any contact. So now we're back to a 5-car draft for the spec Miata win.
looking through the field, we've got a whole lot of battles to talk about. The front end of the field, though, still incredibly intense. Mayoro, Rice-Puto, Crab, and Robertson still covered by practically nothing. The biggest gap in all of these drivers is actually the gap between Robertson and Rice-Puto. That's teetering around that 4.5 tenths of a second barrier as they're through the high banks of 3 and 4 on the oval. Let's see if Robertson has maybe got mounted a challenge as these drivers go pump drafting like it's going out of style. Robertson not using the DRS. DRS not a thing in these MX-5 Cup cars. Using the windshield wipers instead, though. Let's see if that works out for him, trying to lead that outside line. Heading through the first corner. Now we got Miles Crab trying to get the move done on Mayoro. And look at that. Christian Rice-Puto going to abandon Kyle Robertson to shuffle Robertson, the 215 car, back down to 5th.
Yeah, it was a nice move. It was just, fill the gap where you can. Inside line, outside line, doesn't matter. Just make sure you get through the corners cleanly. That's the toughest part of the track there, coming down past 1 and through 2 and 3. So you make sure you get through there clean. If you can pick up a spot, great. If you fall back, not a big a deal. You're still in that pack. As long as you can stay with that draft, you've got a chance. If you're within 1 second, you're still going to be involved in the finish potentially. So it's better just to kind of give ground now and wait for the dust to settle, and then slide back in the line and just wait for your next opportunity to move up, because it probably is the next lap.
Yeah, and thinking of the laps that we have left on the board, trying to do the math in my head, which in fairness, it's math in my head, so it's probably completely inaccurate. Teetering around 2-minute 10-second lap times, a tick over that to be sure. Probably looking in the final 11 minutes of this race of 5 to go would maybe be a good bet. Oh no, the math's certainly failing me at the worst possible time. That sounds kind of accurate. 5 or 6 laps left to go. But just running out of opportunities for these drivers. You got the big draft zones heading down, but I don't know why. I have a feeling here, Charles, that these drivers are maybe just going to strategize how exactly to finish this race. We've covered a lot of Daytona races where it's a draft-heavy race, like the spec race Fords or the MX-5s, for instance, where a driver gets the move done, but they do it too early and leads to them getting bit by the bullet going onto the trial for the last time. So I think we may reach the point where these drivers are just going to experiment to see when they can pull out to get that move done successfully heading into the trial for the last time.
Well, you can see there, Nicholas Rice-Puto with a push on the outside by his brother Christian was able to make a pass from third position up to the lead, basically from, I guess, where you would go in pit entry to the start-finish line. So that shows you, A, what kind of draft you can get, and B, what kind of push you can get, even on the outside. So you kind of see a little bit of strategy being tested to see where do I need to be and when do I need to make my move. Obviously, that tells you that if you make your move going into the bus stop, you've done it way too early. It's going to be one of those last-minute things, and it may be 5 wide across the start-finish line when we're all said and done.
This is a very odd comparison, but trying to get a move done in a race like this, heading off into the bus stop at the end, it's like investing in, I don't know, like investing in Blockbuster in like 2013. That's a play that is never going to work, and these racers are certainly trying to avoid that as side-by-side racing heading off into turn 7. That's going to allow Gianni Mayoro to run wide. He may pick up a slowdown in that number 8 car. Looks like he actually got away with one there, surprisingly so, but Nicholas Rice-Puto maybe giving him a little bit of a spook heading off into the 7th turn around this track. You've seen some drivers go for some moves like that thus far in this race, Charles, and I'll ask you this, in terms of getting the moves done off into the bus stop, maybe that could be the smart call. Get a move done into turn 7 so your competitor will overtake you again heading off into the bus stop. Even if you're just not punching the hole in the air coming out of that corner, maybe... I think we were all on the broadcast together probably about a year ago at this point, when in the old Tuesday night Esports Racing League in a spec racer Ford race at Homestead on the Roval, I believe it was, the final corner before the high banks. It was basically a parking lot, so someone could punch the hole in the air instead of someone else. We may end up seeing a similar case like that through turn number 7 at the very end. Yeah,
I think we've seen it here as well as at Homestead, where the cars were basically about 3 seconds or 4 seconds off the pace, coming down to the final corner before the NASCAR section of the track. because nobody wanted to lead, and we saw a car come from 9/10 of a second back to win that race. And I believe that was in the spec racer Ford, not the Mazdas, but the Mazdas that we had before that also had a car that came from deep in the field to make up several positions at the end to win that race. So yeah, it's that's definitely the definitely don't want to be leading going coming out of the bus stop. I think you're basically what we would call a sitting duck at that point. As you can see them fanning out, just kind of like I said, it's just testing. They're just testing what the run's going to be, how much they can gain by themselves, how much they can gain together. You know, I think it behooves the fact that there's two drivers named Rice Pudo in this group up here that may play well for those guys.
We just saw some three-wide action in the Spec Miata fight. These drivers battling just barely outside the top 10, but still inside the top 15, and they've been giving us one hell of a fight at the front end of the Spec Miata field. It's now Ryan Campbell leading it as he gets a moved on Corey Heffron, him and Heffron side by side. So it's now Heffron back in the lead. Probably going to be Campbell back in the lead in a couple of moments. I'm on the inside line into the second horseshoe. Will it be a successful move for the driver of the number 12 car to take the lead yet again? Yes, it will. The side-by-side, the three-wide racing, I should say, was involving Seth Spallman and Matt Thompson and Chuck Labano as well. Labano and Thompson, both Freedom Sport teammates, and they nearly came to blows heading off into turn number 1. That would have been a really tense and awkward post-race discussion there. So, thankfully, they did not come to blows, but if they want to have any repeats of that, they should probably be a bit more careful, because three-wide action on the high banks, totally fine. Three-wide action coming off the high banks into turn number 1, not so much.
No, not really the best thing to be doing. And yeah, you want to be friends with your teammate till it's time to race for the win. So yeah, let's get these two cars in a position where we can be out front, and then we can race. Ooh, somebody with a big dive down into the bus stop there. The red and black car, and I couldn't catch his name, but or the number. I think it's Labano. You're correct. Thank you very much, Eagle-eyed Josh. Nice dive, really late dive on the brakes into the bus stop there.
And that was a pretty slick move. If he pulls off more slick moves like that, we may have to call him Mr. Vaseline. That would be a very terrible nickname, though, so yes, I don't think he wants to try and do that at all. But looking at the front of this Spec Miata fight, it has broken up a little bit as Lapano dropping down now about 1.2 seconds between himself and Seth Spallman, so it has very much so developed into a three-car fight. We may see, though, side-by-side racing heading into turn number 1. Not close enough for Corey Heffron, the number 52. Seth Spallman, on the other hand, in the number 42. Gonna give us a good fight to talk about it. Now, we've mentioned Spallman thus far in this race. Kicked the season off with a win at the opening race at Road Atlanta. So looking to try and keep that form in the number 42 car. It's been a little while since he grabbed a win, all the way back to October 30th to kick this Group 1 season off. So right now, in all the drivers he's battling with at the moment, you have to go back to Matt Thompson to find another Spec Miata winner from this season. So Spallman running good and finding himself in a very good spot. You don't need to be leading at this point in time to still have a very good shot. As long as you're just in the discussion, that's really all that matters at the end.
Absolutely, yeah. You just want to be in that pack. As we see the lead pack, Yaro is taking the lead there and going through the bus stop. And you see the Rice Pudo brothers, nose to tail, trying to go side by side with Crab and Robertson just behind. And once again, they're just kind of testing to see what kind of runs they're getting through there. As you can see them still nose to tail, Crab and Robertson up on the high line. As you see Robertson getting that bump draft going with Crab, you should see that those cars start moving up. But, yep, as you see it already gaining on Nicholas Rice Pudo, moving Crab up to second place, and you see the run they're getting on the outside when they're stuck together like that. Push Crab all the way up, almost side by side with Morrow.
Here we go. The fighting at the front of the field is still absolutely immense. These racers going to give us a brilliant run to the checkered flag. One driver, though, is probably not going to be having a brilliant run to the checkered flag and will be having a beautiful run back to the garage is Matt Thompson with the money shift on the high banks. That number 33 car was running at one point in the lead, I believe, in the Spec Miata category. However, the only thing he'll be leading at at this point is the build to repair that engine. The unmistakable sound of metal crashing in a motor.
Yep, that sound is known far and wide in our racing circles. That means you have blown it, and it's time to tow back to the pits.
That was probably the saddest sound that an iRacer could ever hear. That is absolutely terrifying. I gotta say, though, iRacing, in terms of their engine blowing up sounds, a lot better than Project Cars, the original Project Cars game. I don't know if you remember some of the sound effects in that, Charles, but I distinctly remember many moons ago playing Project Cars 1. I guess I need to specify since there's 2 others. Playing the original Project Cars, and whenever you crashed, just sounded like someone got like a handful of spoons, like metal spoons, and a handful of forks, and threw them into a sink with a running garbage disposer. So thankfully iRacing doing a lot better in terms of the sounds, but that motor blowing up sound effect is always an iRacer's worst nightmare, and there's a very good reason why I'm behind a microphone instead of behind a wheel, because I have heard that sound a frustrating amount of times.
Yeah, unfortunately, my team in the Daytona 24 heard that as we were sitting in the pits when the driver fell asleep. So, that happens sometimes. But our race was well and truly over by then, so it really didn't matter. So as we're back to the lead here with, is this white flag? No, it's going to be just close. It was close. I don't know if it was white flag or not.
I think it may have possibly been the white flag. We'll take a look at the battle a little bit further in the back. Yeah. This is for the Spec Miata. I gotta imagine it is on the white since we only have a minute left on the clock. Yep. So I guess it is only one more lap of racing action here for round number 4 for group number 1 with the Mazda Manias here from the Ray Esports Club Racing League. It has been true Mazda Mania with battles going on all throughout this field. This is a battle for the win in the Spec Miata class. Heffron, Campbell, and Spallman covered by practically nothing. Chuck Labano really in that gap as well. And you can see there's practically nothing going on right now on the count of the fact we got a beautiful view of the back end of that MX-5 Spec Miata car. Look at that run from Chuck Labano, though, running around the outside, heading off into turn number 1. He may be able to go for the 3-for-1 deal, but Heffron incredibly deep on the brakes. Labano, too, they're both going to run wide. That's going to be a good opportunity for Seth Spallman or Ryan Campbell to take the lead. They're getting involved in this fight yet again. This is an intense battle at the front of the Spec Miata class. I'm looking, though, I see the leaders in the MX-5 Cup class. They've gone on to the high banks for the final time, so we may have to switch our attention in a couple of moments to see these drivers. It's now Miles Crabb at the front of the field. Christian Royce Puda, the younger brother to Nicholas, running at 4th. Christian running in second at the moment. Gianni Maioro separating the 2 Rice Pudo brothers for now, and Kyle Robertson tailing up your field. Any of these drivers have a really good shot to win it, but they need to nail this approach through the Le Mans chicane. Don't let them pick up a slowdown, otherwise you're going to be in for a world of trouble. Let's see if anyone's been bitten by that bullet. It looks like they're all through there, is surprisingly clean. Who's going to have the momentum, who's going to have the speed, and who's going to have the run to take the checkered flag in front of their competitors? Miles Crabb is at the front of the field. That's not the good spot to be in at all. We'll say, though, Christian Royce Puda, a little bit of damage on the front of that car. Maioro pull it out. Look at that. That's terrifying. 4 wide. Heading to the tri-oval at the end of this race. The 2 Royce Pudas, Maioro, Crab Gang shuffled back. It's a 3-4 wide drag race right to the line. And in a photo finish, it's going to be Nicholas Royce Puda winning it as they crash across the line.
Hey, there's a 4 wide finished. Let's see what the Spec Miata guys are going to do.
Oh, they just blew apart there. Seth Spallman and Corey Heffron coming to blows. I need to take a couple of moments before I passed out with the lack of oxygen in my lungs. But it's now Chuck Labano and Ryan Campbell who are going to be battling for the win in the Spec Miata category. Not going to have as much momentum as the overall leaders did, but this is still going to be a drag race. Campbell enjoying that slipstream, enjoying the side draft off of Chuck Labano's number 2 car. It's a fight between the 2 and the 12, coming right to the line. Campbell going to try and pull out ahead. Labano, though, pulling into the draft. Will he have enough time in that race car? It doesn't look like he's going to. Ryan Campbell going to take the win in the Spec Miatas, finishing this race 11th overall. Seth Spallman going to finish in 13th, running at your podium in the Spec Miata class. But it was all just about decided because of a collision heading down into Le Mans chicane. Let's take a look at here, Charles.
Yep, let's see. We get a good... Oh, contact there up against the wall. Yeah, just I think maybe broke the car when he hit the wall. And take another look at this here. We see Spolman up on the high side, 52 car behind him. Yeah, just over aggressive bump draft maybe. But yeah, you can see the wheel damage, the right front of the 52 car of Corey Heffron already broken loose. I think maybe the same thing, at least some wheel damage, suspension damage from Spolman when he got hit into the wall as well. And then that was day done for both of those cars.
That's a rather bizarre looking collision as well. It just looked like the front left suspension of Corey Heffron's race car. I wonder if the front suspension in that car was made out of paper mache or something, because that wheel popped off with incredible ease. That or the safer barriers are actually the danger barriers around this track. But with that terrible, absolutely appalling line out of the way, I think we'll take a look at the results at the end of this MX-5 Cup race. Just Mazda Mania period, and it was manic. Coming to the checkered flag, Nicholas Rice-Puto, though, the number 7 car, going to take the win. Admire those gaps, folks, because holy crap, Rice-Puto wins it over Gianni Maioro with only 14 thousandths of a second between the two of them, coming right to the line. Miles Crab going to round out your podium in third, 0.037 of a second back from not Maioro, but your winner of Rice-Puto, and then you only have to go off 5 thousandths of a second back to Christian Rice-Puto, going to finish in fourth in the number 9 car. And Kyle Robertson will round out your top 5, and that gap between himself and Rice-Puto of less than 0.2 of a second seems like a vast yawning chasm compared to the rest of the cars in the top 5. Randy Marino going to finish right outside the top 5 in 6th. Michelle Squire not going to get her 4th win this season, but still a pretty good recovery drive to make her way up into 7th. TJ Yankee going to finish in 8th. Casey Knight and Trent Kramer will round out your top 10. Ryan Campbell takes it in the Spec Miata category, finishing this race in P11 overall. Chuck Labano finishes a matter of less than a 10th behind in 12th. P2 of the Spec Miata Racers, and that's Seth Spolman finishing in lucky number P13. Wayne Buttermore in 14th. John A. Casey in 15th. Mike Key finishes in 16th. Jason Grider in 17th. Joshua Justice in P18. Matt Thompson in 19th. Tom Wendt going to round out your top 20 and round out the cars that took the checkered flag. Corey Heffron did not, as we saw him involved in that drama at the very end between himself and Seth Spolman. Ends up in 21st. Aaron Bray in 22nd. Andrew Love in 23rd. And Antonio Reese rounding out your 24 cars that are classified at the end of this race. But Charles, looking through, we don't have any drivers in the interview waiting area, so I think we may be able to re-rack it surprisingly early. But before we move on to the TCR race, where we're expecting a lot of drama there as well, I want to ask you about this MX-5 race and the absolute barn burner that we kind of expected and certainly got.
Yeah, absolutely. It's what you expect for the MX-5s at Daytona. You're going to have just lots of passing, lots of side-by-side racing, photo finish at the end. 4-car wide coming to the checkered flag. I mean, what more can you ask for? And then you get the multi-class aspect, and you still had a nice side-by-side battle there at the end between those in the Spec Miata class. So fantastic race by everybody. Not some of the cars that we expected to be up front, had issues early, had respectable drives back up to the front, but, not in contention for the win, but still overall fantastic race.
An absolutely brilliant race, which when everything is said and done is won by Nicholas Rice-Puto overall and Ryan Campbell in the Spec Miata category. But we still got another checkered flag to hang out. That coming in the 40-minute long TCR race that we have coming up for you tonight here on Slow Motion Broadcasting. We're going to take a quick little commercial break, keep the lights on and pay the bills, and we'll be right back with the TCRs for part number 2 of tonight's racing action after these messages.
Through dip 50, slowing crest 40, 1 left. Caution to 2 right short. To 5
Introducing the Sim Motion Rally Sequential Shifter. Our shifter is specifically designed for sim racing enthusiasts who want to enhance their experience in the rally world using a push-pull system. Compatible with wheelbases like the SimMagic Alpha Series, B&M Direct Drive, Fanatic, and Simucube, it can easily be installed in minutes. It also has the adjustability to suit any wheel or driver's needs. It's also plug and play with titles like Dirt Rally, iRacing, and WRC. Available now at sim-motion.com. SimMotion has teamed up with iRacing and V&M Simulation with an extreme prize package for Season 4. To win, paint any car with a SimMotion logo, race in 10 official iRacing events, and you are entered to win an extreme direct drive and GT wheel bundle. But that's not all. Compete in the Formula 1600 Fixed Series, win your division, and you could score this set of pedals. Gear up and get racing. The rewards are waiting. With years of experience and a passion for customer service, SimMotion is a trusted name for SimMagic products. Whether you're just getting started or a seasoned pro, we have the gear to get you on the podium. At SimMotion, we don't just sell gear, we fuel your passion for sim racing.
Alrighty, everybody, welcome back to part number 2 from tonight's coverage of round number 4 for group number 1 of the Ray Esports Club Racing League. We just had a fantastic Mazda race a few moments ago with a full wide photo finish coming right to the line, and here we've got the action from the touring cars. So happy you can all stay tuned for this broadcast. My name is Ron Maunz. We've got Charles Michelle joining me in the commentary booth, and Josh Wilkie working all the cameras and the graphics for tonight's broadcast. We just heard a couple of moments moments ago from SimMotion, and once again, we would like to thank SimMotion for making all these broadcasts possible, the Right Esports Club Racing League, not just from group number 1, but for all of the groups all season long. That sort of commitment is absolutely fantastic, and SimMotion here and there, their support is greatly appreciated. If you're looking to upgrade your simulator, either whether you're in Europe or in North America, you can head on over to us.sim-motion.com and also use code RAY5 at checkout to get some very awesome discounts. But here, ready for some very awesome racing action with the TCRs. We've got some great manufacturer representation around this great racetrack, and we'll give you a quick little tour guide of how this track goes. So, riding on board with Miles Crab, careening your way down to turn number 1, flicking through the gears all the way down to second. Make sure you don't hit that inside tire barrier made out of the matter white dwarf stars. That would not make for a very good evening for you. Heading your way out of turn number 1 through the 2 and 3 chicane, now off into the first horseshoe, once again going through the gears, down into first. These front-wheel drive TCR cars going to make it oh so difficult to get all the power coming out of the corner. Launch running wide all the way out to the curb. Now, this may be a really tough ask for these race cars, a little bit on the heavy end, a bit more towards understeer more often than not. That's turn number 5. The kink, looks like we saw Miles Crab go through that just about fine. Here's the second horseshoe of turn number 6. This may be another corner where you can see that front scrub coming in that Honda. Miles Crab, thankfully, though, he negotiates it rather smoothly. This, though, another hairpin. Turn number 7, we saw some drivers have some difficulties with this in the MX-5 race earlier on. May see the same in this 40-minute TCR race that we have coming up for you, set to begin in a couple of minutes' time. Now, onto the high banks, and in one of these TCR cars, it's not a brilliantly long amount of time. You're not going to break out any sort of poetry to write. However, you will have a bit of time to think about all the ways that this section of Le Mans chicane got to go really well or really, really badly. Miles Crab running on board with him. We'll certainly hope that goes well. Hit the curbs, try and balance the weight transfer. You can see a little bit of understeer kicking into the car as he flicks his way off through the first part of that chicane. Coming out of it now, back onto the high banks. This is turn number 3 and 4 on the oval, turn number 12 here on the road course. The final corner of the Daytona Roval, but it's not really a corner. You're keeping that wheel straight and you are mashing that gas pedal, trying to carry as much speed as you can, heading into the tri-oval, and that will complete a lap of the Daytona International Speedway road course. I'm gonna get some times on the board to kick off this qualifying session. Miles Crab looking to grab the victory in that 131 car. Dylan Vos in the number 19 car, currently our provisional pole sitter. But I'm gonna have to look and see whether or not our winners thus far this season of Jake Sneddon and certainly Ian Anderson, who just jumped up to second, are here. Anderson certainly is, as I just said. He's put himself on the front row a couple of moments ago, the provisional front row, mind you. I'm looking through, trying to see as Will Pierre jumps up to the pole. Where is the winner of Jake Sneddon? He is in the session, currently running the number 7 car. So let's see what Sneddon can do. That fight between he and Anderson is certainly going to be intense. We got some drivers at the front of the field, though, looking to play spoiler.
Yeah, absolutely. This is my first foray with the Ray Esports TCR class, so obviously I'm familiar with the TCRs. These actually are my pain point as far as my iRacing career, because everything's just geared toward rear wheel drive, and so TCRs, you know, that they're front wheel drive, all the power's in the front, the braking's in the front, and they're just very, very difficult to get, or at least for me, to get my head around. Obviously, these guys, these drivers are much more proficient at it than I am, but it's going to be fun to watch. I do know this, you know, the hard braking points, turn 1 is going to be kind of critical because these cars have a tendency to nose in and kind of grind the nose. If you're a little rough on the brakes, have a tendency to get the rear end loose as the front splitter digs in, and then you're headed backwards. So you know, it's going to be very critical to master the braking in these cars. Should get some good drafts. Obviously, with Daytona, with the long straightaways, the drafting is going to be really good here. But I think the braking zones, turn 1, the entry back onto the oval, turn 7, and then the 2 horseshoes are going to be pretty critical. Obviously, that's 90% of the lap, but still, it's one of those things that you just got to pay attention to every lap of the entire race. 40 minutes. It should be no problem. I don't think there's a pit stop involved in this. Seems like 40 minutes should be a straight race. Ron, you can fill me in on that.
I will fill you in on that in a couple of moments, but I just want to point out the fact that Will Pierre and Ian Anderson briefly tied at a 157.490. Will Pierre, though, breaking that tie, going to a 147.426. But talking about the way that these races usually go here from the TCRs, it's usually, I'm trying to think of the best way I can really sum it up throughout this season, because we've had some wildly different races. I mean, harkening my mind back to the opening race of the season at Road Atlanta, had some pretty bad rain affecting that race from start to finish, so it made it a rather confusing one to try and keep track of, with multiple cars going off the track all throughout the race. But here, with the TCRs, it's going to be just straight up 40 minutes of dueling all threat, and these racers looking to give us the best show that they possibly can, and trying to manage this track as well, which is certainly going to be a tough one in these TCRs. You mentioned the fact they are front-wheel drive, one of only a handful of cars that are actually front-wheel drive in the sim, so a small collection of them. And I gotta say, it's definitely not a trying to think of the best way to really sum it up, but iRacing, if you're tuning into this broadcast, would we possibly be able to get the old Nissan GT LM Nismo into the game? That old insane front-wheel drive LMP1 car that they had back in 2015, I think it was. That was just a goofy race car. I feel like we need to have that in the sim just for documentation.
Yeah,
just documentation alone.
I mean, if we're just putting out an iRacing wish list, can we get the Dodge Viper GT1 to go along with the C6 and the Aston Martin? It seems like that would be a worthy addition, even though it's almost a 20-year-old car. But either way, I'd be happy with it. These, like I said, you're right. There's a small collection of front-wheel drive cars, and it is a very different driving style. As you said, they are kind of, because they are front-wheel drive, they do have a tendency to understeer. So if you're too hard on the power coming through a corner, you just kind of push your way through the corner and then to the edge of the track. You have to kind of collect the car and reset. Obviously with all the weight on the front, the rear gets very light in the heavy braking zones. It has a tendency to want to, grind the front end down and lift the rear end up to where you just really don't have a lot of control. So it is one of those things that you have to get used to. Obviously I haven't got used to it yet, and I've been driving it. I've been in iRacing since 2019, and I still really struggle with these cars. So it is a unique opportunity to learn a different skill set that I haven't acquired yet.
I gotta say, in terms of my personal experience driving the TCRs, I will be completely honest and say I haven't owned these cars and Jake Snett just noses it into the barrier, probably not happy about the way his lap was going in the number 7 car. Noses it into the barrier, certainly not hoping to have a repeat of that performance in the race we have coming up. Already has 2 wins thus far this season in the TCRs here for group number 1 of the Ray Esports Club Racing League. He's one of the top drivers here in the TCRs, and has also proved himself to be a rather good competitor in the GT4s, and that 70-minute long race that we're going to have for group number 2 coming up in 1 week's time here on Slow Motion Broadcasting. And speaking of all the stuff here on SMB, should probably give you a reason to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you never miss out on any of the racing action. But looking through the action that we've got right now in qualifying, I would like to take a brief little sidestep and talk about a driver currently qualified in 10th. It's Nemo Tagalag, who I've kind of talked about throughout the season. First off, having a very fun name to say on the broadcast, and also driving a number 2 Honda, much like how I used to do right towards the end of my karting years. But he's a driver who, throughout the season, I say we, Charles, you haven't been here for a decent chunk of the season thus far, and Josh just came back from the bathroom, so I guess I can say we now. But Nemo Tagalag He was a driver. I mean, he's a newcomer to iRacing. He has a rookie license, has a 1300 I rating, so he's not a veteran of the iRacing platform, but we have seen him improve quite a lot in that Honda of his, and found himself in his qualifying session with 21 cars currently with times on the board. That's a very good lap time. So he's not out there at the moment. I believe his qualifying session is done, but I just wanted to shout out Nemo in that number 2 car. Still got a few more cars like that on the racetrack, though, but at the front of the field, looks like Will Pierre in the number 17 Honda going to be grabbing the pole.
Yeah, great lap so far. He's up by about 11 hundredths of a second over Ian Anderson. And I once again, we're talking about this being Ray Esports. Obviously, some very familiar names to me from my time of broadcasting the Ray Esports series, whichever series that might be. But obviously, there's some, with the TCRs, and I'm assuming the GT4s next week, there'll be some new names that pop in there. I don't know Nemo Tagalog, obviously rookie in iRacing, but a lot of the drivers that we get in the Ray Esports series are club racers in real life. So it may be that Nemo's got himself a spec racer or a spec Miata, or who knows, and is getting some seat time in the real world, and found iRacing through maybe just meeting somebody at one of the events, and he's decided to come in and jump in and hit the digital version and see how it fares for him.
This is going to be a rather long diverging story, which usually when it comes to, I was just going to say, usually when it comes to me sharing stories on the air, they are usually a bit in their nature. They're either incredible letdowns in the case of, I think it was the last time the series was broadcasted here on SMB. I shared the story with our esteemed colleague, Mr. Adam Thompson, talking about how I got into curling, and have to be known that went down like a wet fart. But I will share this story kind of talking about Nemo Tagalog and mentioning a story from my childhood, which is actually a little bit of a wholesome one. I used to have a Disney-themed blanket. I think I still have it somewhere in my closet. And it was this old, small little rickety old blanket that I used to call Taggy. There was one corner on it that had this tag, and I always just snuggled up to it, to the point where that corner of the blanket is actually worn down basically to the cloth. All of the fluff and everything is completely removed from it. That has been in my life for the past 20 years, and I don't think... I feel like I probably snuggled up to that thing enough whereby it's probably considered biohazard at this point from my sneezing on it for the past 20 years. So that's a nice little wholesome story, contrary to usually the other stories that I share on the air, which are a bit foul in nature. So removing from the party fouls, I'm usually sharing a slightly wholesome one. Anyways, back to normal routine. Talking about qualifying, I'll share a very bad story to share at the end of this broadcast. Sure. No, actually, as we're still in this qualifying session, I'll share a pretty funny story to come out of the city of Philadelphia as of late. So I want to preface this by saying that I am not a big sports fan when it comes to anything outside of auto racing. So if there's anyone particularly down in Dallas, Texas, that has something negative about the Philadelphia Eagles, have it be known that I am not a big Eagles fan. Our mayor, Mayor Sherelle Parker, was doing the Eagles chant and accidentally said ELGSES. Oh, Elgses, I guess. We're going to take a look at the starting grid. I have no idea.
Public school education.
Trust me, I spent well too many time in Philadelphia public schools. Believe me, Charles. It's the creme de la creme when it comes to education. I'm shocked that I'm as okay as a commentator as I actually am. But we're going to get the starting grid loaded up here before I get myself involved in a lot of hot water with our mayor. Because frankly, folks, I don't want to get audited. Will Pierre going to be starting this race from the pole. Ian Anderson going to join him on the front row. Dylan Foes and the number 19 car will be starting this race in third next to Jake Sneddon, looking for his third win this season in fourth. Michelle Squire will be starting in fifth. Miles Crabb in sixth. Kyle Robertson in seventh. Trent Kramer will be starting in P8. Nolan Bromer in the Taco Bell car will be starting in ninth. Nemo Tagalog going to run at the top 10. Then we have Carrie Anderson in 11th, who just made her appearance yesterday on the Racing Line podcast, which you you can catch every single Tuesday over on the Ray Esports YouTube channel. Matt Thompson will be starting alongside her in 12th. Now looking through the rest of the drivers that we have in this field, we have got the 13th place starter of Chuck Labano, Ryan Campbell in 14th, Seth Bowman in 15th, Aaron Bray in 16th, Joshua Justice in P17, Mike Key in P18, Paul Ellis in 19th, Jason Ryder in 20th, Wayne Buttermore 21st, Casey Knight in 22nd, and Tom Wentz going to round out 23 cars set to grab the green in a couple of moments' time. Charles, last thoughts before we head into 40 minutes of TCR action.
Well, just going off of the last race we had, I expect just great things out of these drivers. Obviously, lap one critical. You want to be able to stay on the track with no damage, get through the first lap, and then we'll settle in and have us a good 40-minute race. And just an update, Tom actually did win, and he is not in the session.
I appreciate that pun. Well done, Charles. 22 starters set to grab the green in a couple of moments. I know it's and congratulations to you. But still, 22 cars set to grab the green in a couple of moments' time for the fourth race for the TCRs here from the Ray Esports Club Racing League. This is going to be a fun one. Let's see how things go with the flags at. And the drivers are on their way. And you can see these cars lumbering to get up to speed. They look like giants compared to the monsters we saw earlier on here today, which may make some 3-wide and 4-wide action hang off into turn number 1 a bit more tricky. These drivers are still going to give us some side-by-side fights all throughout the field. This is a pretty terrifying perspective heading their way through turn number 2 and 3 for the first time. These drivers giving us a good fight at the front, but Dylan Vose putting on a really good fight, already making up 2 spots to take the lead in the number 19 Audi.
Yeah, good start by Dylan, who jumped out to the front. Good clean start by everybody. Nice and stretched out, almost single file, and that's what we need to be here at the very start. Ooh, 2 wide through the kink. Got to be very careful there on cold tires, but safely through, and we'll continue on.
Some drivers have some frayed nerves at this point, and that was, I think, that may have been a near spinner coming out of the second horseshoe, but looks like no harm, no foul. I will mention a quote that Joshua Wilkie said a couple of moments ago. Like a rear-wheel drive car, really good. I gotta say, the weight distribution of these race cars is rather goofy. More towards understeer, and these cars are I think I said this right as we were wrapping up the Mazda race earlier on, Charles, and we went off the air and started talking about this TCR race. I mentioned that these cars probably weigh as much as a small planet does, so it's going to make this race a lot more, just a complete 9-day difference from the Mazda race we saw earlier. Yeah, and
the good thing about that is these cars are a bit hardy, and they can take a little bumping amongst themselves. So, you can take a little bit of damage and it won't hurt you too much. As we said, Wayne Buttermore there has a little bit on the left front, little crinkle in the hood, which means he's probably made a little bit of contact with the rear of somebody's. Yeah, you got to watch out there. It looks like the bump drafting is starting to kick off, and you got to be very careful. These cars, you can't lift the rear end of these cars up and expect to do a whole lot with them. So you got to be very careful with the bump drafting, but it is absolutely doable in these, and I think it's a little bit more difficult with the fact that these are front-wheel drive.
Yeah, adding another completely different dynamic than some of the other races that we see here on SMB. I think there's a lot of shuffling going on a little bit farther in the back. I think Aaron Bray may have had a monkey drop down to 20 seconds. I'm not sure what happened to him. Looking at side-by-side fight being developing here involving Seth Spallman and Josh Justice. Those two drivers currently battling for 15th, but the battle's a little bit farther towards the back, ended in disaster for Bray. I think we'll get a replay loaded up in a couple of moments' time once we see this side-by-side between Casey Knight and Mike Key cool off. They're still side-by-side on corner exit, now heading their way through the braking zone of turn number 6. Mike Key in that 998 car, battling hard with the 210 of Casey Knight. They're still side-by-side on corner exit, and it looks like Knight going to get that move done to set her way up into P17. And now we're going to take a look at the replay to see what happened to Brett.
Yep, so we're coming down to the start-finish line and heading out into turn 1. Wonder if it's just too hard on the brakes and maybe gets a little squirrely. Oh, no. Oh, who's that car behind them? That was a wicked fast entry by Ellis there coming down into turn 1. He gained a lot of time coming down through here. He had a little bit of room, but I think he just maybe misjudged it a little bit. Yeah, Yeah, he wasn't making that corner. That was just too hard on the entry there into turn 1.
I'm not sure if he would have even made it. I'm not even sure if he would have made it around that turn before he ended up in the Atlantic Ocean. That was a lot of speed. Heading off into turn number 1, going to take 2 good race cars out of it. Not completely out of it. The only retirement we have thus far from this race, I believe, is actually Went, who did not take the start. But still, lots of drivers running throughout this field, and the battle up towards the front is really intense. Side-by-side racing with Anderson and Dylan Bose heading off through the corner. Looks like Anderson going to get shuffled back down to second. Jake Sneddon running in third. Will Pierre occupying fourth, and Michelle Squire, who are following right now the number 75 car, running out to top 5 as it stands at the moment. So you're mentioning how different this race in the TCRs was going to be from the Mazdas earlier on, Charles, but it's a case of deja vu with a 5-car pack in front of the field.
Yeah, I mean, it's, you know, it's still racing at Daytona. There's still going to be, it's still pack racing. Even, you know, it started with NASCAR and now it's with the road cars as well. It's just pack racing. You just set up, you stay in the pack, you make your passes when you get a good run, and then you get past when somebody else gets a good run. But you stay up to as close to the front as you can get until the end of the race before you start making the dramatic moves to either cement your name in glory or end up with your name in cement.
And let's see what these drivers are going to do. Are they going to be cementing themselves in the history books, or are they going to be peeing their name in the snow? Let's see how things shake out between now and the checkered flag. It's still a while left to go in this race. So think of how hectic the Mazda race was. We still got more time left in this race than the Mazda race had at the drop of the green. So lots of time left to go for these racers to make some moves up. And Anderson making a move up to slip his way into the race lead. So Ian Anderson looking for back-to-back wins. That may be what the doctor orders from this series. We kicked it off with 2 back-to-back wins from Jake Sneddon. Anderson won last time out and maybe going to go for the double and keep that streak alive.
Yeah, I mean, maybe it's, you know, you've got a chance if you're really handy with these TCR cars. You can get a kind of a breakaway, but once the cars start working together, they can track you down fairly short order. So sometimes it takes a little bit of a kerfuffle, a spin somewhere to kind of break these packs up a bit. So we'll see if that happens, or if Anderson is just good enough to where he can just kind of break away on his own. But my guess is probably not. Probably going to be he'll get a nice good run, do really well through the twisty sections. But then once we get back on the straightaways, the cars that are just kind of bunched up and working together can track him down pretty easy.
And some of these drivers may be going to be taking the same approach into this race as a heat-seeking missile would, and hopefully not going to blow apart their competitors in the process as well. That would certainly not be ideal. Lots of paperwork involved in something like that. Looking at some side-by-side racing involving Seth Spollen and Nemo Tagalog, who goes off the track heading into turn number 6. That's going to be a simple off-track excursion, but it's going to cost a whole lot of time, and may cost him another spot as Casey Knight going to be rearing her head in this fight, getting the move done down the inside into turn number 7. Pretty slick from the driver of the 210 car to slip her way up into 16th. We got battles up and down this grid. I will say as well, Charles, the field's still rather vacuum sealed together, because looking through the abundance of orange and yellow that we've got on the left-hand side, proving this fight all throughout the field, it's very close.
Yeah, the top 9 are pretty close together. There's a little bit of a gap between 9th and 10th, I believe. Brahma running in 10th place. So, you know, got a nice group of cars up there near the front, and Brahma's got his hands full with Thompson. So it's, you know, I was just kind of oohing and ahhing at that camera shot of Tagalog coming back on the track and throwing grass and dirt up in the air. That was, you know, the new iracing off-track debris system, which just every season seems like there's a little new wrinkle that iracing throws in and just makes things A, really cool, and B, really stressful.
I think the stress levels that a lot of these drivers are feeling are probably not doctor advised, but still, they're racers who are going to give us some pretty good fights, and in the midst of battling as hard as they possibly can, occasionally going to get that blood pressure spiked up a teeny tiny bit. Looking at 2 drivers going side by side, heading down into turn number 5. Jake Sneddon jumping his way up into P2. He's put on a pretty good drive at the moment, up 2 spots from where he started in this race, but he's not the hard charger by far. Casey Knight is in the 210 by Hyundai. She's up 6 spots from where she started in this race, so cutting her way through the field. I wouldn't just give her the distinction of cutting her way through the field like a hot knife through butter. I'll have to come up with a different phrase. Cutting her way through the field like a staple being pierced through a stack of bubble wrap. That's a little bit here, but it works.
Yeah, close enough. So yeah, having a great run so far. Did see Tagalog is in the pits. Not sure why. He did not hit the wall when he had that off track there in turn 6 that we were viewing. So don't know if maybe he had a piece of damage somewhere else, but he is in the pits for a stop, and see if he gets back out on the track. Meanwhile, we're sitting on board here with Miles Crab, who's running in P6. Up near the front, still in that lead pack, so, you know, still sitting in a good position. You know, this lead pack, they're just basically, we're at a point now, I think they're just kind of marking time. You know, if they can get a good run, they'll start doing a little testing. As you can see, the Audi of Vos pull to the outside, make it 3 wide going down to the start-finish straight. Start-finish line, and then down into turn 1, see if they stay this way, or if they make it down to 2. Looks like they're down to 2 wide, and everybody safely through. Ooh, little half spin there by, is that Crab? It was indeed, little half spin by Crab in turn 1, but manages to collect the car. And so far everything's still going okay. I don't think that was Crab, actually. I think that was somebody, maybe Kramer. Yeah, Kramer in the Taco Bell car was who I saw that was kind of sideways coming through turn 1 in the Honda Civic Type R.
Yeah, I think that may have actually been Nolan Bromer in the Taco Bell car. We've seen that Taco Bell car have a lot of interesting moments throughout the season, so the bell certainly getting rung yet again with that off-track moment in the early stages of this race. Looking at the front of the field, covered by a pretty small margin as it stands currently. A pack of 9, covered by practically nothing. Not a lot of things in the world that you see come in groups of 9. I'm trying to think if there's any at all. I nearly said bananas. That would have been wildly inaccurate. At the risk of embarrassing myself, I will not give any more suggestions because I feel like anything that pops into my head about what comes in a group of 9 will probably go down like a lead balloon. So I'll just leave it off at that. But looking through this field, we've got battles continuing all throughout this field, and looking through right now, and I'm trying to figure out who may be the driver that we have to keep our eyes on the most in terms of the spots they're running in and the ample time they have to try and make their way up through the field. Looking through at the moment, I think the driver that may be catching my attention the most is probably going to be Wilkie, because he hasn't grabbed the checker flag thus far this season. He finds himself in 3rd, and he's close to that lead. He needs to go up about 2nd to find Ian Anderson in the lead of this race, as he may try and get a move done around the outside on Jake Sneddon. They may be 3 wide coming out of the corner. Look at that. That's some close quarters racing between these drivers, giving us one heck of a fight to talk about at the front of the field, and nearly coming to blows heading through the braking zone into turn number 4. Dylan Post getting involved in this fight as well. But Will Pierre in that 17 car is a driver that I think we really need to talk about come time for the end of this race, Charles, because he hasn't grabbed a checker flag yet, but he has shown some winning pace all season long, and certainly proving that. And so, that's a big slide and off the track and bang into the wall. A huge hit for Michelle Squirick, and that's going to take her out of it. That motor is destroyed. You can see smoking up in the air. That's not smoke from a barbecue. That is smoke from Cook's motor.
Yeah, that's it's smoke from a barbecue. We see coming down in, it's just in the kink. It just over rotates. I think she maybe tapped the brakes, just kind of checking up a bit for the cars in front, and just lost the rear of the car. Yeah, she was off the nominal line there through the kink and just overturned. Too much steering input and just lost the rear, and next thing you know, she's into the barrier on the inside of the inside of the kink, which becomes the outside of turn 6.
drivers getting bit by the bullet already in this race. Gotta say though, in terms of attrition, the fact that 13 come up to 14 minutes into this race thus far, and that's the major high-key incident we've seen thus far. Then the round of bowling heading off into turn number 1 early on, and a rather clean start for the drivers all throughout this grid, and with how hard the battling has been as well. The fact it's been clean is a pretty good example as to how good these drivers really are.
Yeah, absolutely. As we see the move down, that's Pierre to the inside of Anderson into turn 1. Still 2 by 2 as we come through. He has to give it up. Just could not get a run coming out of turn 1. Wisely just kind of lays back, lets Anderson take that position. He'll reset and try that again. I'm sitting here really just kind of studying the timing and scoring, because I want to see what those runs are looking like when these cars get hooked up in the draft and they start doing the bump drafting. And I don't see a real benefit from it yet. So I don't know if it's just because they're not really pushing the envelope that hard, with only 15 minutes gone in the 40-minute race, but not really making up a lot of ground in the draft. It looks like a lot of the drivers are making up ground just staying in line and just going deep in the braking zone in turn 1 and in the bus stop as well. They can just stay on the a little later on the brakes to make up 2 or 3 tenths as they're working their way through the corners.
Some drivers at this point in time trying to figure out their strengths and weaknesses at this point of the race, figuring out what works for them, what doesn't. I think the reason why we're seeing the field spread out a teeny tiny bit at the front end is probably down to the fact that we're seeing these drivers experiment, and some of them experimenting, others attempting, at the very least attempting. May not actually being able to do it, but just attempting to settle into some sort of groove. Bromer, though, all sorts of messed up heading through the Le Mans chicane. I am very much so surprised the fact the number 21 car didn't pick up a slowdown there. That Taco Bell car, I don't know what it did. I mean, that's a very striking livery as is, with the pink and the white and the blue. Now I want a volcano quesarito. Actually, no one ever wants a volcano quesarito. But it's a striking livery, and more often than not, we usually see him being the center of attention in these races. The action tending to gravitate around some of these racers. As last time high should be noted that Miles crabbed just at the fast lap of the race. So, a lot of drivers really showing their true colors and showing, it's like a peacock showing off their feathers.
Yeah, he had a really good draft from Trenton Kramer coming out of the infield, basically through the entire NASCAR oval section. So, yeah, it doesn't surprise me that he had the fastest lap of the race. I was once again, just eyeballing Anderson. Anderson and Pierre fighting down into turn 1 allowed Snedden to get out to almost a full second lead, and it's sitting at 8 tenths now. But they were able to take it down by a couple of tenths just on the oval section. But then once they got into the infield, Snedden was able to just stretch it back out again. So they have to work really hard to try and make that gap up if they're going to have a chance at getting back up to Snedden and challenging for the win.
And let's see who's going to be able to challenge for the win in this race. Looking at the front of the field, which is still kind of breaking up in a way. Snedden pulling a 7/10 of a second gap in front of Ian Anderson. But those drivers already have wins thus far this season. But Will Pierre nearly giving the old heave-ho and the punt to Ian Anderson, heading down into the Le Mans chicane. That could have ended in tears. Could see Will Pierre wiggling through the braking zone to try and keep the front end of his Honda off the back end of the Honda of Anderson right in front. Meanwhile, we've got Dylan Vose in the Audi trying to get a move done. I will say something as well, talking about the manufacturer affiliation that a lot of these drivers have. We had a lot of Hondas running very, very strong in this race. Maybe Honda putting that Daytona is a bit of a happy hunting ground for them in a way. I say that as a Hyundai is leading.
Yeah, it's it comes and goes. iRacing does a really good job of giving these cars a balanced performance based on changes to the things they're doing under the hood of the iRacing software, where they're making changes to tire models and suspensions and things like that. Excuse me. So the Honda, when it first came out, was really underpowered. So they've done a really good job of giving that Honda a little more performance, or maybe backing the performance off of some of the other manufacturers, and balancing things out. I think the Audi was obviously the first one that we got, and kind of was the flag bearer for the TCR class. The Hyundais came in, the Hyundai Veloster. I think the Honda and the Hyundai Veloster came in the same time, and then we got the Elantra a bit later. But now you got a pretty nice balance of performance, as you can see. If you look at Will Pierre's car, the front end of that car, and I bet when he gets up there to the back of Anderson, I think you're going to see a perfect match on dents between those two cars, where the nose of Pierre's car is pushed in, and the back of Anderson's car pushed in. As Pierre makes a move down inside the bus stop, drops down, makes that pass. Now it's going to be and that's maybe a little bit low, and Anderson went back high, got a good run out of the bus stop, and took that spot back. So that P2 for Pierre was very short-lived.
Very, very short-lived, making a small little trip up, and that's going to cost you a boatload of time. I will say, though, talking about the dents matching the cars, I could relate to that very, very much. There's a lot of dents in my head that very much so match the size and shape of the coffee table in my living room. I don't believe it at that. I was a very accident-prone child. But still, looking at the front of the field, these drivers hoping not to have the same streak in terms of incidents that I had as a kid, banging my head on just about every single surface known to man. So we got these drivers at the front of the field, the top 5 covered by about 2 seconds as it stands currently. And look at that, the dive from Will Pierre. I didn't even register what I was seeing a couple of moments ago, but Pierre going for the dive on Vos. And let's see Anderson going to be dropping back a little bit. I will say it was Pierre going for the dive on Anderson, and Vos just slipping through. They're side by side through turn number 5. That is sketchy for either of those racers. And look at Vos incredibly deep on the brakes, heading off into turn number 6. They're 3 wide, now make it 2 wide. Pierre and Vos battling as hard as they can for the final podium spots. Now Anderson kind of a fight on his own with Crab. Pierre going to aggressively clear the nose of Vos. See what I did there? Haha, that was terrible. Into turn number 7. So Pierre going to get that move done to slip his way into second.
Yeah, and Crab also gained up. But the thing that happened there, that was some great battling, great passing, very clean racing, but it allowed Snedden to gain another second, so he's now got a 2-second lead over P2.
Yeah, 2-second lead is rather big around a racetrack like this. That, or we may just be a little bit stained by what happened in the Mazda race, where if we saw a 2-second gap, I was like, holy cow, 2 seconds? Oh my God, that's a big slide from Vos heading through the oh boy, that's heading through the Le Mans chicane. I nearly called it the inner loop. Nope, that's Watkins Glen. Vos, though, I think he turned his tires into rectangles trying to keep that car going in a straight line, but the fact he kept that car going in a straight line is an utter miracle. How in the world did he do that in the 19?
Well, here's the one thing I learned from my driving with the TCR class, is if you ever slide it, just floor it, and it'll straighten itself back up. And I think that's pretty much what Vos did. And I know that because I've had to floor it many, many times in that car, especially the Audi. The Audi and I do not get along at all. But well done by Vos. Great driving to be able to collect that car. Could have very easily just looped it around, and it would have been all 4 or 5 of those cars out of the race in very short order. So well done by all the cars to avoid him, and great job by Vos to hang on to it.
And Vos putting on a beautiful drive in terms of just keeping that car going in a straight line, knowing what a car can do. That is genuinely, I don't think he could have gone even more sideways if he tried to go that sideways. So that is absolutely fantastic stuff. And looking through this field, it's been a really good race thus far with a lot of battles packed into it. And the battles are still not exactly cooling off. We've got a 4-car battle developing here. You can see Chuck Labano running 11th at the moment, involved in this fight with himself, Nolan Bromer, Kerry Anderson, and Matt Thompson. These drivers battling for the final few spots inside and outside of the top 10, and giving us some great fights to talk about all around.
Yeah, absolutely. Points are points. So, there's a big gap between P9 and P12, I'm sure, as far as points are concerned. So obviously you want to be at the front of this train. So they'll be doing everything they can do to get up there, and they'll finish, they'll battle for the remaining 17 or so minutes of this race to see who's going to get that P9. You never can tell, we still got a big battle up front between 4 or 5 cars. So you could pick up spots by basically just keeping the car on the track. Oh, as we see another car sideways. Great job by Anderson to catch that car. A little travel through the grass, that's fine. It needs a little manicure after the race weekend, and so able to collect it and keep it back on the track. That was Matt Thompson. My apologies. Great job by Matt to collect that car. Another one of those half spins through the bus stop. We see it all the time. And great job by Matt.
Yeah, that was a great slide heading off through there. We're going to take a look at trying to figure out what happened to Thompson in that number 33 car. I'm curious as to whether the curbs had anything to do with it. Yes, it did. So Thompson hitting the curbs through there, munching some cones in the process. So in autocross terms, that's going to be plus 3 cones, plus 6 seconds as you see Chuck Labano. Nice Chuck Labano stopped coming out of turn number 1. That's very bizarre for the driver of the 14 car. That is very interesting. Not sure what happened to the Hyundai. Let's take a look at it here, Charles.
Are we going to get some inside wall action here? Oh, yes, we are.
Oh, just nicked it. Just nicked it. It was a matter of inches between hitting it and not hitting it. And sadly, the game of random number generation not going to come up very, very well at all for Chuck Labano. We're going to run on board with him. And there goes the camera.
Yep, and there goes his front suspension. You can just see the tire wobbling. Great camera angle there from Josh. Yeah, just so close. And, I can't say I've never done that before because I have. Yeah, it's one of those. Just luckily, everybody was able to work their way around the outside and quick tow by Chuck to get off the track and out of the danger zone and back to the pits.
Yeah, so thankfully for him, he's out of harm's way for now, but that's an easy mistake to make, to be sure. Seeing a lot of drivers make it thus far in my iRacing career. I've made that myself, so I can't really judge at all, but still got a little while left to go in this race, and we got some battling all up and down this road. I will say, though, and it probably would have been best if I typed this out in a small little message, because of the conflict of shows, so to speak, going on here at the moment here on Slow Motion Broadcasting, as Miles Crab going to get a move done, maybe on Dylan Vose heading off into turn number 1, not close enough to get the move done. I believe, gents, I may have to duck out of here in a couple of moments and cover another broadcast going on here on Slow Motion Broadcasting, so I will keep with it here for a couple of moments and allow our very own Josh. Oh my God, you can see 3 wide action. Look at that. Vose beating and banging and roughing each other up. Ian Anderson getting shuffled out and getting the short end of the stick and all that. Kyle Robertson also being used as a pick in that battle as well. But a lot of great battling going up and down this grid. I gotta say, for the final 15 minutes of this race, it's only set up for a very, very good one. Josh was my co-commentator for the series for quite some time, and I certainly have a lot of faith that you two will be able to hold off the show very well. I'm basically on reserve duty for Mr. Mike Braun, our colleague here at Slow Motion Broadcasting, living in Los Angeles, who is still being ravaged by the wildfires. So we wish Mike nothing but the best. And he's racing for his power to get cut, so I may have to go over there, gents. So, gents, it's been fantastic. Josh, wonderful camera work as always. Charles, again, happy to have you back on these broadcasts. And enjoy the rest of it. And to all the viewers tuning into this broadcast, I hope you enjoyed the action as well. And take it easy, have a really good show.
Well, thank you very much, Ron, and we'll continue this race as we're at just past the 27-minute mark of a 40-minute race. We're on board here with Dylan Vose running third. He's got about a 5-second gap up to Snedden, who's basically been able to check out with all the battling amongst his top group. We got Will Pierre up in second. He's managed to kind of break away himself, running kind of on his own in second place, 3 seconds behind the leader, but another 2 seconds or so ahead of that group, starting with Vose in third. Robertson, Crab, and Anderson from third to sixth. We got Trenton Kramer in seventh. Ryan Campbell in eighth. Kerry Anderson ninth. Nolan Bromer in 10th. That rounds out your top 10, and that is still a battle there between Anderson, Bromer, Casey Knight, and Matt Thompson, who is still in there. So there's still a nice battle there from 9th down to about 12th. Thompson's dropped off a little bit as we're back on board here with Vose running in P4, as we'll bring in Josh Wilkie, who's our doing the double duty now for the final 17 or so minutes of the race. With running our cameras, and I'll try and speak as much as I can, much to the viewers' detriment, I'm sure. I don't quite have the gift of gab that Ron has, so I'll do the best I can. So as we're on board with Brahmer here in the Taco Bell Honda Civic Type R, tracking behind Casey Knight, and that's the battle there for the top 10. As you can see, they're still pretty well, it's pretty tame at this point. I think most people have decided that, you know what, we'd like to finish this race, so we're going to just kind of hang out and run in line for a few laps until we get a little bit closer to the end. We see foes coming through the bus stop here, coming down through NASCAR 3 and 4. As you can see, Robertson just ahead of him in the green and black Honda. You see Vos kind of getting a good run, getting that draft run up there, and it's one of those that just kind of see, okay, let me time this and see where I'm going to end up, just short of making that pass at the start-finish line. So it's like, okay, I'm about a half a lap short, so I'm going to have to do something a little different. Maybe stay in the line a little bit longer. We see Crab looking to the inside to make the pass coming through turn 1. I can hear you now.
There we are. I think we got my mic back there. Charles, sorry about that. We're leaving you on your own there, all alone for a minute. Yeah, I think this is probably the first time we've been able to do a broadcast together, so this should be pretty cool. And around Daytona, of course, getting the TCRs here. I was on the first couple of these this season, and it's always been pretty good racing. Was definitely looking forward to the racing around here at Daytona. A little bit surprised actually at how spaced out we are here today with these drivers. The front pack's staying pretty close together, but the rest of the field has kind of spread out a little bit. Jake Snedden being one of them here, just kind of marching away into the sunset. Yeah,
he's had the benefit of the cars behind him getting in battles. When you start getting those 2 and 3 car battles down through turn 1, 2, and 3, coming off the NASCAR oval section, if you're up in the front, you can make a half second or a second just to those cars as they're having to tiptoe their way through, making sure they're not trying to take each other out or take themselves out in the process. So, it's given Snedden and Pierre as well a chance to just kind of break away from this group. This group's still battling hard. We saw that move that Crab attempted going down into turn 1 on Vos that didn't quite work out, but he's got a 3/10 gap back, and so he'll be looking to see if he can make another run. And just once again, we're still just kind of looking at timing. So, okay, we're testing things to see what's happening. We see Trenton Kramer's about 4 seconds off the back of Anderson, kind of running solo himself. You see Crab with the fastest lap of the race with a 158.009. It's a very quick lap. As we see Sned working his way through turn 1, nice and easy does it. Just kind of looking on board. Are we getting close to having any cars? Actually, we do. We've got some back markers that Snedden's going to have to deal with here pretty soon. Some lap traffic. So that might play into this. That might allow some of these guys to catch up. If Pierre can get back up there and get the benefit of a little bit of traffic, then he might have a chance to battle Snedden for the race win before this is all said and done, as we see this big group once again coming down through the infield there, through the kink, going down into the international or to the Western Horseshoe, turn 6. We still have Anderson in 6th place. He's just on the back of Crab, and Vos and Robertson just in front. And we can see Pierre just a little bit further up the road. They can see him. They're just not going to get any bigger in the window just yet. But if I'm one of those guys in that group of 4, I'm looking to try and maybe do a little what we call co-opetition. We're going to cooperate with each other and see if we can get a couple of good runs and make up that stagger, and then we can start competing again after that. So we'll see if any of these guys can kind of work together and kind of bring that gap down just a little bit. It won't take much. It's a couple of seconds. So a couple of good drafts working nose to tail, especially if you've got a 4-car group that are willing to at least attempt it. Could bring that group a little bit closer up to the front of this field.
Yeah, I think you're right. I'm actually, a little bit surprised here. I don't drive these often, so I don't really have a whole lot of experience in them or anything. But kind of surprised that they don't seem to draft quite as much as maybe you would think they would, or maybe they are, and maybe there's a bit of a skill gap here. But I would be suspecting them to kind of draft a little more. Or perhaps you're right, Charles, that they're just kind of not playing ball with each other here, as we see them going too wide into T1 again. And I mean, every time you do that, you're just going to lose time, right? So that's going to allow people like Will Pierre and Jake Snedden to just kind of walk away with things a little bit here. And I think you might be right, Charles. They've just kind of been battling sort of for the positions around them rather than looking forward, maybe. Or perhaps they just think Snedden has the pace on them today, and I'm just going to fight for third or fourth, and they're happy with it.
Yeah, maybe. Snedden, obviously, from hearing Ron earlier, is kind of the kind of been the top of the field for the first part of the season. So, and Will Pierre, obviously, as Ron said, has got really good pace. Just haven't had a chance to get up there for the win, but you can see that Snedden's already he's adding more time to Pierre. The gap's up to 4 seconds now. The gap between second and third is 3 seconds. So these guys are, like, as you said, not doing themselves any favors by battling between each other. But, they are racing, and so that is the name of the game. And sometimes the desire to make that move to get that one position overrides the desire to actually work with somebody on the track that you're fighting. Yeah, absolutely. Yep. And these are obviously not and I also agree with you. Don't think these cars draft as well as some of the other cars, like the GT cars or even the Mazdas that we saw in the last race. It amazes me how much air they move. I guess it's because they're, I guess part of it's because they're open tops, so they do catch a lot of air, and it allows the cars behind to get a big run. These are a little more aerodynamic. But even the two, when you get the two cars together in the bump draft, it's not really doing a lot for these cars. So
you're telling sort of a tale on the left-hand side there. Sorry, go ahead there.
Yeah, no, you're right, absolutely. You get the two cars, nose to tail. They couldn't get the move done on the car on the outside. It finally did as they were working their way through 2 and 3, just because he was on the outside line. Now he switches over to the inside line. As we're on board here with Kyle Robertson, is able to get that P4 position back, but now it's just a matter of setting themselves up, and it looks like they'll be setting themselves up to try and make another move at some portion of the race. You see Anderson looking to the inside there, was thinking about that, chose not to. Was able to get on the binders and get the car slowed down before he got into the back of Robertson. So these cars will reset again, and I'm just kind of watching Kramer's time's actually coming down because these guys are fighting. He's actually moving up a little bit, and so if these guys are not careful, they're going to have Trent and Kramer joining this group. And we've seen Trent and Kramer over the course of the Ray Esports series is always quick. So you put him up there, he might be able to do a little something with these guys. He seems like he's always competent and a very quick driver in any series we see him in, whether that's MX5 or Spec Racer or Formula Ford. So wouldn't surprise me if he gets the opportunity. He can get up there and make a little bit of hay as well.
Absolutely, yeah. I have the pleasure of racing Trenton in the SRFs and the FFs and stuff almost every weekend when I get a chance to, and he's usually blowing my doors off in one way or another. We've had a couple close battles before, but yeah, he's definitely good in all types of machinery out there, and I think you're right. If these guys keep kind of not playing ball with each other up here and going too wide, he may have a chance by the end. We are kind of nearing the end of the race here, and things are kind of starting to look a little bit set. I was going to mention earlier too here, we're looking at our top speeds on the left-hand side here, and you notice even though Jake Snedden has the lowest top speed, or almost one of the lowest top speeds in the room, he's in first place, and that's going to have a lot to do with just the drafting, right? So these are cars that are drafting down the straight, and you're getting all that speed, but then you're just not able to use it because you kind of get stuffed into T1 or what have you, and that's sort of the story of how these drivers here have kind of not been able to catch up to Snedden, even though he is setting the fastest time with one of the slower lap times, or one of the slower overall speeds.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you get that top speed in the draft, and we saw Crab, I think, had the fastest lap of the race at some point in time during the course of this. But he's been running in somewhere between 5 and 8 for the most part. And it's just because he's able to just kind of ride behind the rest of the cars and get a good draft. So he gets a good top speed, gets a good lap time out of it, but then can't do anything with it because the cars are just that equally matched and the drivers are as equally matched as well. So, you're just basically out there for a nice good lap, and then you're stuck in the parade as it is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. You just it's just an accordion every lap, as we're seeing. There's a bit of swapping positions back and forth, but every time they get to this back section, they have a car or two length in between them. It's actually a little bit odd watching them every time coming into the bus stop here. They just have a big gap, and then it kind of closes up by the end. And it seems to be some people are a little stronger on the infield, maybe a little bit less, maybe not getting a good exit here or there, but the draft just really not working for them, and definitely not working together to move forward.
Yeah, absolutely. As this should be the white flag. This should be the last lap of the race. As Snedden comes to the line.
Do we have a white flag? It should be. I believe so.
I believe it is. With 20 seconds left on the clock, this should be the white flag. Yep, see the white flag in the air. So Snedden just kind of cruising, 5 seconds up over Pierre. The battle's going to be here for P3 through P6. Vos, Robertson, Crab, and Anderson.
Yeah, I think you're right, Charles. This is definitely where the battle's going to be here. We're going to be watching. I'm going to keep my eye on Anderson here. He was leading a little bit earlier. There he goes right now. I've been seeing him getting pretty pointy, and there's his first move into T2 here. I have a feeling that's not going to be the last one, but that draft on the back straight, maybe we'll see if they can use it this time.
Yeah, absolutely. So Anderson up to 5th, Crab down to 6th as they're working their way through the kink. You see him almost nose to tail there, almost touching. Crab nicely easy on the brakes, give himself a little bit of room to work his way through. As we see Vos up front, Robertson in 4th as they're working their way coming out of turn 7 onto the oval for the last time. Nice corner through for Vos. A little wide for Robertson, but able to hold it. No big deal. So now we've got the draft setting the bus stop up, and so we're going to see who's going to take the bus stop and try and get a run down to the start-finish line.
Yep, this is going to be all about this bus stop here, and Dylan Vos is not in a great position to be able to keep this position here, but it's really going to be all about this for sure, as we're going to try to get over to the winner here of the race. He will be crossing the line momentarily here, Charles.
Yeah, absolutely. So Jake Snedden going to take the win. All he's got to do is get around the final corner, take that checkered flag, and he's going to win this round at Daytona International Raceway. So we see him crossing pit entry and crossing the start-finish line, taking the checkered flag. Congratulations to Jake. Will Pierre is going to be 2nd, and we got the good run. We've got Vos. We've got Anderson, Robertson.
We got some contact at the line, and that was too close to call for me. I'm not sure who got it. Robertson got her.
300ths of a second. Great ending there. Robertson, Vos, Anderson, and Crab. And the gap was about 2.5 tenths between all 4 of those cars. Another fantastic finish there. As we're going to get the replay, Robertson dives down to the inside. Vos stays high, trying to keep the run going. Robertson just gets his nose out. We've got Anderson behind, trying to push from the outside.
Almost looked like Anderson was going to get that run, and he even tried to give him a push and still didn't quite make it to the line there, or just did. That is, wow, what a finish there. Even with the push at the end, he didn't quite get it, Charles. That was quite the ending.
Yeah, it really was. I think maybe that was just too hard of a push. I think it kind of caught Vos off just a little, caught him off guard just a little bit, and kind of got in the car a little bit squirrely, lost a little bit of traction, and Robertson able to take the flag for 3rd place overall, 300th of a second over Vos. Anderson only about 700ths behind, and then Crab about 1.5 behind in 6th. Like I said, about 2.5 tenths overall between 4th and 6th place. I'm sorry, 3rd and 6th place. Snedden, obviously, class of the field, gets the gaps the field out to 5.3 over Pierre, who takes 2nd place. So Pierre, good run, no checkered flag, no wins this week. So he'll come back next time and try and go for the win for the next event. As we will go through as everybody finishes. We see Jason Grider, I think, just took the checkered flag. So we'll give you our final race results here and wrap up tonight. Double feature at Daytona with the Mazdas and with the TCR cars. A really great race.
Yeah, absolutely, in both classes there. Again, a little bit surprised how these were drafting around here, but you know, these TCR cars, although I don't really drive them very often, I'm not a big front-wheel drive car driver, at least yet in iRacing anyway. They always race really well. You know, every time I do one of these races, I'm just surprised at how well they race. They can door bang pretty good. They got some pretty good speed. And as we were seeing in the chat here as well, they're a tad loud. We actually couldn't hear the commentators a little bit over the motors there for a while. So we'll definitely have that tweaked for next weekend and get a special setting for how loud these TCRs can be. Was not expecting that, but pretty good race all around, I'd say, Charles, and we'll get the results here as soon as we can.
Yeah, absolutely. And we have a one-person way to get interviewed, but we'll get that after we give you the race results. Jake Snedden with another win takes the win here at Daytona. Will Pierre in second, Kyle Robertson in third, Dylan Vos in fourth, Ian Anderson in fifth, Miles Crabb in sixth, Ryan Campbell in seventh, Casey Knight in eighth, Kerry Anderson in ninth, and Nolan Brommer rounds out your top 10. Matt Thompson in 11th. Trenton Kramer, I did see, actually came in and pitted with a couple of laps left in the race. Finishes 12th. Josh Justice in 13th. Mike Key in 14th. Paul Ellis in 15th. Aaron Bray in 16th. Seth Spolman in 17th. Chuck Labano in 18th. Wayne Buttermore in 19th. Jason Grider in 20th. Michelle Squarick with the incident early in the race, finishing 21st. Nemo Tagalag finishes 22nd, and Tom went before the race started, so he is our final participant in 23rd. And so that rounds out your race results, and we do have a couple. We've got actually the interview room is filling up. Let's bring in our race winner first, Jake Snedden, and we'll have a little talk with him and get his thoughts on the race. Jake, this is Charles in the broadcast booth. Congratulations on the win. Made it look kind of easy. I think you had a little bit of help from the battles behind, able to give you a gap, and you were able to hold on to it.
Yeah, definitely was not easy. The first 8 laps was quite intensive in terms of the battling. And then about midway of the race, it was kind of unsettling in terms of people finding their place behind me and just managing. And then finally was able to like break away towards the end there. But that definitely did not come easy.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And so I guess we're talking, and I think the majority of us up here in the broadcast booth are pretty much novices when it comes to the TCR car. So, I've tried to drive it. For whatever reason, I haven't been able to wrap my head around it. So just from your aspect, what makes the TCR A fun to drive and be such a difficult, normally we would see at Daytona, it's a draft race, and you see all these cars drafting, making passes, but it seems like the TCRs are not quite the car you want to do that with.
Yeah, so I actually don't particularly like FF chassis, front-wheel drive chassis.
Mm-hmm.
They're not, depending on the platform, they're not really that fun, but they are a great development car in the sense that they're both really easy to drive, but also really hard to master in the sense that I think front-wheel drive cars require a lot more precise input on the brakes.
Mm-hmm.
In terms of like trail braking and whatnot, and just really understanding how front-wheel drive cars work in terms of, how you drive out of corners and come into corners, and just how the aero works front to back on them. But they're a pretty fun car. Daytona was pretty interesting because I also too thought it was just going to be a drafting battle, which it kind of was, but the problem with the car is, like, if you even step out of tow just a little bit, they can't quite capitalize on it because they just make 0 horsepower. So,
Well, there you go. That seems like that was the key to the battles. There was it just seemed like that every time somebody got a run, it seemed like it just reeled back in. And if you ever stepped out of line, it was just like hitting a brick wall, which happens with a lot of the classes, but maybe not to the amount that it happens to the TCRs. So, Jake, we'll let you go, but we'll let you give any thanks or shout outs that you want to give before we let you off.
Yeah, I'd love to get a shout out to my boss, because I was not able to make it home in time, and I actually was able to drive for this race on a sim at my work. Really saved my bacon. And obviously all my friends that I love and also support me, and I support them, always shout them out. Very, very beloved friends. Yeah.
I think I need a job where you work. I'm just saying, if you've got a sim rig there that's available for use.
I was going to say the same thing there, Charles. That's that sounds like a gig and a half.
You got everything you need.
There you go. There you go. All right. Well, Jake, congratulations, and we'll see you at the next race.
Yeah, you too. Thanks.
All right. That was Jake Sneddon, race winner tonight here at Daytona. And we're going to bring in Josh. You want to do an interview?
Yeah, absolutely. Why not? Yep.
Okay. We'll let you pick. You got a
sure.
choice
I'll bring
between P2 and P3.
Let's bring Will Pierre in here and have a little chat with Will.
All right.
Hey Will, how's it going? Josh on the mic here. So you were able to pull out a second place today. It looked to me like the draft really wasn't working in these cars like I had expected it to work. I was kind of expecting the draft to be a kind of a big deal and there'd be a big snake of TCRs right till the end of the race there, but you guys were able to actually kind of gap away from the rest of the field, and it looked like you were actually struggling to catch Jake as well. Were they drafting pretty well, or how do you think that happened today?
I think that the draft is really important in these cars, but with all of the arguing over position, the benefits of the draft are a little nullified.
Yeah.
Like in the first 5 or 6 laps, everyone would make up half a second going to turn 1, and then we'd all lose it because we went 3 wide into turn 1.
Right, exactly. Yep. So that's kind of what we were talking about there out in or during the race as well, that it kind of just looked like, you have to move forward, but the drivers around you have to kind of want to move forward with you. And if you're battling for positions, that's a pretty difficult thing to do. But you were able to pull the second place out today, and that's definitely a good result for the TCRs. Is there anybody you'd like to thank out there?
I guess I'll just shout out Jake again at SimMotion. He hooked me up with my current setup, and it's been a great help. I've pretty much bolted on half a second of consistent pace. Very happy with it.
Awesome. Yeah, definitely good stuff there for sure. Sorry, go ahead.
The rest of the guys in the SimMotion team for being good teammates and having good racing. That was some of the most fun I've had in a really long time. Those first 5 or 6 laps, just exchanging position after position after position, all door to door.
Yeah, it's it's awesome around here for that. You can usually just get beside and be racing 2 or 3 wide almost every lap. And yeah, it was an awesome race today, Jake. So thanks a lot, and we will see you. We'll see you next week.
All right, sounds good.
Right on there, Charles. We should mention actually, the reason that Jake Sneddon has such a good gig there is because he works at SimMotion, of course. So he's got all that stuff around him all the time, and when he's at work, you can just probably jump in one of the better simulators, probably nicer than most of ours, I would think, right at work there. So pretty cool to have him on board and some actual sim racers and people who sell the stuff and race it as well, so they know what they're talking about down there at SimMotion.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So congrats to Will Pierre there. And we'll bring in our final podium position, and we'll bring in Kyle Robertson here. So, Kyle, congratulations. P3 overall, and the best finish of all the racers, I would say. Nice little 3 wide there at the end to make things a little interesting. So, talk about your race.
Yeah, that was redemption for the first race, we'll say. that was fun. Oh my gosh, that was so amazing. I was lucky to keep pace with the guys up front using that draft, and then just trying to outbrake everybody into turn 1 to try and keep up with them. But that ending was a nail biter. I took the biggest breath before that last time through the Le Mans chicane or the bus stop. Just I was like, I need to get this right to make sure I get this run set up, and it worked out.
Yeah, it did. We were watching the end of it and kind of replayed it, and Vos got a really hard bump from Anderson. I think either he wasn't expecting it to be that hard, or it maybe just kind of broke traction on his car, so it didn't really pay off the way they thought it was going to. So you did get the benefit of that. So congratulations. And I was going to ask about the next event. And but I don't know what the next event is, so you might have to tell me what it is, or Josh might have to look it up.
I remember it's the GT4s at Road Atlanta.
Oh, so you're going to be in the GT4s next week? Okay.
Yeah,
so
it's going to be a good one.
Road Atlanta. Okay, yeah. So we're all about some Road Atlanta, and you'll be in a GT4. Which car are you going to pick?
I've been using the Mercedes all season. It's been a switch for me because I was dedicated to the Porsche and decided to change things up a little bit, and not regretting it.
I think the Mercedes is a good choice. I've heard good things about that car. I normally, if I'm going to drive one, it's normally the Aston. But I think that I don't think I would go wrong, because I'm a big fan of the Mercedes GT3, and I hear the GT4 is just almost as good. So good luck to you next week. We'll let you give any thanks or shout outs that you want to give, and we'll let you go.
Yeah, I'd love to thank my team, Drive Trainer Motorsport, for the support they give me with these races. Are the sponsors, Me Shirts, Driver Academy. I can't shout out all my team, but Andre, Bowie, TJ, Gabe, Miles, Garrett, everybody that we work together. It's a family, and we just try our best to help each other pick up time, and it's been working. Like, moving my way up through the field. And I like to thank you guys and Stevie Ray, because this league is amazing. The broadcast is amazing. It's definitely a blast, and I'm happy I joined.
Yeah, Kyle, so just out of curiosity, what part of Florida are you in? Are you still in Florida?
I'm originally from Orlando, literally right by Disney. But right now I live in South Carolina.
Oh, okay. So any snow?
A little bit yesterday, like maybe 2 inches, but it was nothing crazy. Like, it never stuck. I lived in Colorado for 2 years before that, so seeing snow out here.
Okay, not that big a deal to you. I got you.
Exactly, yeah.
All right, Kyle, well, congratulations, and have a good night. We'll see you next round.
Thanks, guys. Take care.
All right. All right, well, Josh, that wraps it up for tonight. And so next week, we've got the GT4 Group 70-minute race at Road Atlanta. So that should be a fantastic event. We'll look forward to that. Final thoughts from you?
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely looking forward to the GT4s at Road Atlanta, one of my favorite tracks. And, I think we've all done enough laps around Daytona in the last couple weeks here, and leading in, of course, to the 24 hours this weekend. Great race today, though. That was a great one with the TCRs and the Mazdas around here, but always looking forward to a trip to Road Atlanta. I think the GT4 is, not only being beautiful machinery, but on a great track as well. So really looking forward to that one, Charles.
Yeah, absolutely. I think Road Atlanta in any car makes for a good race. So we'll be looking forward to that next week. So for Ron Maunz, who stepped out early, but we'll still say thanks for Ron for obviously doing great work, for Josh for doing double duty, both in the production booth and on the microphone. I'm Charles Beauchelle. Thank you very much for watching the Ray Esports Club Racing League, and we'll see you next week, and have a good night.
You're clear.